A deal has been agreed on the future of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, who are to step down as working royals in the spring. Buckingham Palace confirmed on Saturday that Prince Harry and his wife Meghan will no longer receive public funds. They won't use their royal titles either. They've also said that they want to pay back taxpayers' money spent on renovating their home in Windsor.
People don't really understand it until you actually see it coming at you in a wall of flame. Everything is so dry here, and it's been drying out for 2 years, so it's very volatile. And of course we have the eucalyptus, which is in the air. It's volatile too, so it just explodes. It's very, very terrifying.
There you have it, the recorded sound of Big Ben in Downing Street. And so begins the next chapter for the United Kingdom. We have now formally left the EU after 47 years. We are no longer EU citizens. Scenes there in Parliament Square, where the celebrations begin.
Now, he was the rugby league star, still is, who defied his small stature to become one of the sport's true greats. Well, now, Rob Burrow is tackling his biggest challenge yet after being diagnosed with motor neuron disease.
Our fans and players showed their support yesterday with a special benefit match at his former home club, Leeds Rhinos.
Enters the field, 5 minutes to go. Myler salutes him. Burrow, hero of Headingley, hero of the hour. What a man.
Amazing day. I've been lucky enough to, enjoy many a day on that ground, but nothing like that.
He also shot. Oh, right hand down the middle. Towels in. They've thrown the towel in. The fight's all over. The fight's all over. Wow. They've thrown the towel in from the Wilder corner, and Tyson Fury is the heavyweight champion of the world.
Storm Kira is battering the length and breadth of the UK, causing widespread travel disruption. Winds of up to 90 miles per hour are predicted to hit some areas.
The coronavirus pandemic started in China, spread to Europe, and had reached the UK by the end of January.
The latest UK case of coronavirus is the first to be contracted within the country rather than abroad. The man walked into a GP surgery in Surrey feeling unwell. It came as another patient who'd been quarantined on a cruise ship in Japan became the first Briton to die from the illness.
We have a new name for the coronavirus. The World Health Organization has officially called it COVID-19. Co for corona, Vi for virus, D for disease, and 19 because it started last year.
COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic.
The coronavirus is the biggest threat this country has faced for decades. From this evening, I must give the British people a very simple instruction. You must stay at home.
The Prime Minister has announced the most drastic limits to our lives that the UK has ever seen in living memory. The aim, he says, is to save lives in this time of national emergency.
Leading health organisations, including the Faculty of Intensive Care Medicine, have repeated their warning that a lack of protective equipment, or PPE, is putting lives at risk, and they called for a clear strategy to ensure a sustained supply.
There are now more COVID-19 patients in the UK hospitals than there were on the day of lockdown in March.
Our chance now to join you in giving a heartfelt thank you to our incredible NHS workers for everything they're doing. Wherever you are, stop for 5 minutes now and show them some love.
Let's return now to our top story. The shocking news that the basketball superstar Kobe Bryant has been killed in a helicopter crash in Southern California. He was 41. All 9 people listed on board, including Bryant and his 13-year-old daughter Gianna, were killed.
Caroline Flack has died at the age of 40.
The celebrity psychic Aurora has died, according to a statement posted by his wife on social media.
The singer and showman, often called the architect of rock and roll, Little Richard, has died. He was 87.
The death has been announced of the actor Sir Ian Holm.
The Monty Python star Terry Jones has died at the age of 77.
The Hollywood legend Kirk Douglas has died at the age of 103.
Chadwick Boseman, the actor who was best known for playing the lead role in the Black Panther film, has died from cancer at the age of 43.
Bobby Ball, one half of the comedy duo Cannon and Ball, has died. He was 76.
The BBC is now reporting Oscar-winning actor Sean Connery has died.
Dame Barbara Windsor, one of the country's best-loved actresses, has died at the age of 83.
His young life was cut cruelly short in an accident at sea when he was just 18. But Michael Hartley's name lived on, used and, say his family, abused by undercover police.
For 30 years and more, it's something that's been done on street corners, but now it's official. Breaking is an Olympic sport.
In the language of the US Department of Defense, these are unidentified aerial phenomena. Videos which add fuel to the belief of some that we are not alone.
Some breaking news this evening, and scientists are saying water could be more common on the moon than previously thought. The discovery could boost NASA's hopes for future lunar missions.
Early risers in Australia's outback on Sunday got to witness the return journey of a Japanese space probe that it's hoped could be carrying secrets about the origin of the planets.
New at 5, a bizarre discovery in the desert just north of the Arizona border.
A giant piece of metal sticking out of the rocks, and no one, this is the weird part, has any idea how it got there or who put it there.
Team 12's William Pitt has more on the monolith mystery.
And here he comes, Captain Tom Moore, approaching his 100th birthday, 100 laps of his garden during lockdown, all of the money going to NHS charities, a guard of honour in the 1st Battalion, the Yorkshire Regiment.
Tens of thousands of people have joined anti-racism demonstrations across the UK, despite government appeals for protesters to stay at home because of fears of spreading the coronavirus.
Tens of thousands of people took part in further anti-racism protests across Britain today, with the statue of a 17th century slave trader pulled down in Bristol. The monument to Edward Colston, which had stood in the city centre for more than a century, was toppled and pushed into the river.
No sooner had they knelt than it began. The sound of booing echoing around the Den before the match against Derby County.
It's been acknowledged by government and other public bodies that the pandemic has hit vulnerable groups and those living in deprived areas the hardest. Official figures for England show that the overall death rate between April and June this year in the poorest areas was nearly double that of the least deprived.
An investigation continues this evening after an American fighter jet crashed this morning off the East Yorkshire coast. Emergency services were alerted just before 10 o'clock after the F-15 plane had left RAF Lakenheath in Suffolk.
The U.S. Air Force says a pilot is dead after a fighter jet crashed this morning.
We've got some breaking news to bring you, and it's to do with the Prince of Wales. He has tested positive for coronavirus.
Harry, well, I've just discovered that the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, has tested positive for coronavirus.
Donald Trump has said he and his wife Melania have coronavirus.
The emergency services are warning that the aftermath of Storm Dennis still has the capacity to cause damage and endanger life.
Now, 13 years after she vanished, prosecutors in Germany say they believe Madeleine McCann is dead.
In a dramatic escalation of tensions in the Middle East, a US airstrike has killed Iran's most important military commander. General Qasem Soleimani was the commander of the Quds force of Iran's elite Revolutionary Guards. They are responsible for Iranian foreign military operations and answer directly to the country's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei.
Iran says it will take revenge for the US killing of its most powerful military commander. General Qasem Soleimani died when his convoy was hit by a US drone at Baghdad airport.
President Trump says Iran appears to be standing down after it launched overnight more than 20 missiles at Iraqi bases where US troops are stationed.
We begin with the breaking news of a Ukrainian passenger jet plane has crashed shortly after takeoff from Tehran, killing at least 170 passengers and crew. Iran has accused Western leaders of lying about the cause of the Ukrainian plane crash, which took place near Tehran on Wednesday. Both Canada and the UK say intelligence suggests an Iranian missile brought down the passenger plane, killing everyone on board.
Iran now says it shot down a Ukrainian passenger plane that crashed near Tehran on Wednesday.
Iran says it has arrested a number of people for their role in the incident. President Hassan Rouhani has given a televised speech saying those responsible will be punished for what he called an unforgivable error.
Some breaking news for you. Iranian state media are saying one of the country's top nuclear scientists has been assassinated.
Initially, Iranian authorities said multiple gunmen were involved in the shooting, which happened after an explosion near the scientist's car. But now other Iranian officials talk of an extraordinary level of sophistication, an unmanned automatic weapon controlled via satellite and mounted within a car, which then self-destructed.
Iran's leaders have promised to retaliate after the assassination of the country's top nuclear scientist. President Hassan Rouhani blamed Israel for the killing. Israel has stayed silent.
More tension in the Himalayas on the disputed border between India and China. Both sides are accusing the other of firing shots in the air on Monday night. Now, this disputed area is around what's called the Line of Actual Control, or the LAC. It runs between Indian-administered Kashmir and Chinese-administered Aksai Chin. Now, let's talk about the Indian Army, which is saying 20 of its soldiers have been killed by Chinese troops in the disputed Kashmir region. This is the first deadly clash on this border in 45 years.
Officials in the Indian state of Andhra Pradesh are still struggling to identify a mysterious illness after the number of people affected continues to rise. 300 people of all ages have reported symptoms in the last 2 days, including seizures, dizziness and vomiting. One man has died.
A long-awaited report says there is credible evidence that Australian elite soldiers unlawfully killed 39 people during the Afghan war. It has uncovered what the head of Australia's armed forces says is a shameful record of a warrior culture among some soldiers. He's apologised to the Afghan people.
China is accusing Australia of attempting to stoke domestic nationalism in a row over Australia's response to a tweet from the Chinese government.
We start with the significant worsening of relations between China and Australia. Beijing has defended one of its officials who tweeted a fake photograph showing an Australian soldier holding a knife to an Afghan child's throat.
The Ministry of Defence has confirmed that members of the armed forces boarded a ship off the Isle of Wight tonight and gained control after a suspected hijacking. 7 people have been detained.
Joe Biden has won the American presidential election. The BBC projects that he's crossed the threshold of 270 electoral college votes needed with a win in the state of Pennsylvania. He will now become the president in January, pending the outcome of any legal challenges.
As president, I have no higher duty than to expose the tremendous voter fraud and irregularities which took place during the ridiculously long November 3rd elections.
It seems now all but certain that the 2020 Olympics in Japan will be postponed.
I think it's absolutely monstrous that the BBC, having been given quite a generous settlement, should now mysteriously discover that all their highly expensive presenters mean that they can't afford to look after over 75-year-olds when it comes to their TV licence.
In the Premiership of Leeds United, the club who were champions of England 12 years ago.
Hundreds of thousands of students in England and Wales and Northern Ireland have received their A-level and vocational qualification results today after major disruption caused by the coronavirus pandemic. But there's controversy because the figures for England show that 39% of grades were marked down, while 2% went up.
In a huge policy reversal affecting hundreds of thousands of pupils, England, Wales and Northern Ireland have all announced that A-level and GCSE results will now be based on teacher assessments rather than grades generated by computer modelling.
Now, a Spanish businessman was paid more than £20 million of British taxpayers' money for his role in securing protective garments for NHS staff during the pandemic. Documents filed in a US court also revealed he was in line for millions more in subsequent payments. A legal dispute being fought in Miami has revealed the sums of money made by some foreign companies which have been supplying the NHS with PPE. And it's led to further questions about the way that the UK government has managed the procurement process. The United Kingdom has secured a deal for an initial delivery of 5 million doses of a brand new vaccine developed by the US biotech firm Moderna. The deal means that the vaccine could be delivered from the spring of next year if it's approved by the regulator. The Health Secretary for England, Matt Hancock, warned that the safety data was limited and that the firm's production facilities were not yet fully developed.
The serial killer, Peter Sutcliffe, known as the Yorkshire Ripper, has died in hospital at the age of 74. He had coronavirus.
Now, I want to update you on the wildfires in California. They've burned through more than 1.4 million hectares this year. That far exceeds any other year in the state's history.
Care providers in England are calling on the government to make plans to allow people to visit relatives in care homes. Visits were banned over 12 weeks ago as care homes across the UK closed their doors to try to protect their residents and staff.
So let's just make this very clear. My nan, my 97-year-old nan here, who we have taken from the care home because we haven't seen her for 9 months, is now being taken back by force to her care home. My mother has been arrested. My mother is in the back of the car here. She is a nurse. She is a fully qualified nurse who is wishing to care for her own mother. And here we have an incredible use of police time to take my 97-year-old grandmother back into a care home where she is deteriorating, where we haven't been able to see her for 9 months. Nan, I love you and we are going to fight for you.
From Thursday until the start of December, you must stay at home. You may only leave home for specific reasons.
England is to face a new month-long lockdown across the nation, starting on Thursday and lasting until the 2nd of December.
The Pfizer vaccine is coming to the UK. Soon it'll be heading to other countries too, and a huge operation is underway.
This is one of the first deliveries of the vaccine to Croydon University Hospital. It's checked over as part of the safety protocols, and the first patients will be inoculated tomorrow in what will be the start of the biggest immunisation programme in the country's history.
90-year-old Margaret Keenan became the first person in the UK to receive the Pfizer jab today. It meant the UK became the first country in the world to begin using a clinically approved COVID-19 vaccine. The period of self-isolation for people who've had contact with those who've tested positive for coronavirus is to be cut from 14 to 10 days. The new rules, which already apply in Wales, take effect in the rest of the UK on Monday.
From Wednesday, 34 million people in England will be living with the highest level of restrictions in Tier 3. New areas, including the whole of London, are being moved into the top tier because of a very sharp rise in the number of coronavirus infections.
One of the main reasons for the decision to push millions more into Tier 4 in England is the rate of new infections, with fears that this is being driven by the new variant of the virus. But this afternoon, the Health Secretary revealed that 2 cases of yet another variant have been detected in the UK. This one was first discovered in South Africa. Tonight, the government said it was temporarily stopping flights from there from 9 a.m. tomorrow.
There's growing pressure on the 4 home nations of the United Kingdom to make changes to the COVID rules agreed for the Christmas period. Further talks will take place tomorrow, amid concerns that the guidelines as they stand will lead to a very significant rise in cases. Despite growing pressure from doctors and scientists to abandon the relaxation of COVID restrictions over Christmas, the 4 nations of the United Kingdom have broadly agreed to stick to the plans.
Hospitals across the southeast of England have begun cancelling non-urgent operations, with some struggling to cope with double the number of COVID patients they had in the spring. It comes as government sources confirmed tonight that there is concern about the new variant of COVID-19, amid fears it could be making the virus more infectious and harder to contain.
On the NHS front line in South Wales, at Morriston Hospital in Swansea, there's been a surge in COVID patients, and the virus is said to be running rampant in local communities.
Viruses mutate all the time, and the good thing about SARS-CoV-2, actually the virus that causes COVID-19, it doesn't mutate very much, about 2 or 3 times every month. Variants can occur any time the virus replicates itself, and that happens all the time. If a mistake is made when it's copying its crucial genetic code, that's a mutation. These can be small, making no difference, or they can be significant, potentially affecting how quickly it spreads or how deadly it can be.
In a dramatic change of policy, millions of people across England have been placed under stringent new coronavirus restrictions for the festive season. Boris Johnson made the announcement today after scientists said a mutation of COVID-19 was spreading rapidly in London, the southeast and east of England. The variant is said to be much more contagious, but doesn't cause more serious illness.
As coronavirus vaccination programs get underway around the world, there are concerns growing that the poorest nations may be missed out or left to the very end of a very long queue for the resources. Now, one of the arguments being put forward to back that claim is the amount of surplus vaccine being bought by wealthy countries. Some estimates suggest they have pre-ordered enough to vaccinate their entire populations 3 times over, making it, of course, that much harder for everyone else to access them.
People with significant allergies have been warned not to get Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine after 2 NHS workers fell ill on V-Day.
A team of international experts is still waiting for permission to enter China and analyse the evidence gathered so far. The government has rubbished claims of a cover-up and insists it has been open and transparent. But without independent scrutiny, such statements are hard to defend.
Can you explain further what the weaponisation of COVID means?
If China had acted in a timely manner in that 3-week window when something could have been done, 95% of the cases of COVID would never have happened, and we would not now be in the grip of a global pandemic.
Australia will launch a formal appeal to the World Trade Organization, asking it to intervene with its ongoing trade dispute with China over barley and other exports.
Hundreds of thousands of people from ethnic minorities, including the Uyghur community, are being forced by the Chinese authorities to pick cotton in the far western region of Xinjiang. That's according to information seen by the BBC.
Britain says it's deeply concerned that the Hong Kong businessman Jimmy Lai has been charged under the territory's controversial new national security law. He was arrested in August on suspicion of having conspired with foreign forces to endanger national security.
The Met Office has warned of strong winds and heavy rain, with Storm Bella forecast to arrive in the UK tomorrow.
At the end of a year surrounded by the danger of a virus, it's rising water that is threatening families tonight. As it creeps closer to doorways, police have issued an alert. 1,300 homes in the Bedfordshire area have been told to pack up the presents and leave this Christmas.
The floodwaters may now be receding, but at its peak, it caused chaos. The roads surrounding Billing Aquadrome Holiday Park in Northamptonshire became rivers in a matter of minutes, leaving hundreds of people stranded.
There's a real sense of crisis here this evening, particularly over the travel ban, not just here but throughout Whitehall. Now, Number 10 has announced that the Prime Minister will chair a COBRA meeting tomorrow to discuss the situation regarding international travel, particularly the steady flow of freight in and out of the UK.
Live pictures from Kent, from the M20 in fact, where you begin to get an idea of the scale of the backlog at the port of Dover.
These are quite incredible scenes. On almost every street in Dover, you're greeted with this, row after row of lorries, vans and cars, all trying to make it across the channel. And despite being urged to move on, those I've spoken to say they're going nowhere.
Boris Johnson will travel to Brussels tomorrow for a meeting over dinner with the EU Commission President in an attempt to unblock talks on a post-Brexit trade deal. Negotiations remain stuck with just over 3 weeks to go before the transition period ends at the end of December.
Well, where we stand now, Emily, is it looks like we are not heading towards a trade deal with the European Union.
British government source said tonight that as things stand, the offer on the table from the European Union remains unacceptable. It comes as a former Conservative Defence Minister said the government's decision to put the Royal Navy on standby to protect British fishing waters in the event of a no-deal Brexit is undignified and irresponsible.
A post-Brexit trade deal has finally been agreed 4.5 years after the UK voted to leave the European Union.
The introduction of rapid and accurate COVID testing has always been the key to persuading the French to open up their ports again. The Transport Secretary says agreement has been reached with France and traffic should start flowing again soon.
The spread of disinformation and harmful content has long dogged social media giants, and now platforms that don't abide by a duty of care and remove harmful content face fines of up to £18 million and could be blocked in the UK altogether.
Social media companies will face very significant fines if they fail to remove and limit the spread of illegal content, and a new proposed law is published by the government today. Big tech firms will have to abide by a legal duty of care to protect children.
This was a victory for Kira Bell, who as a teenager was prescribed puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones before deciding she wanted to transition back. A controversial ruling that will make it more difficult for anyone under 16 to get the drugs.
A car has exploded in the US city of Nashville, and what police there say they believe was an intentional act.
Evacuate now.
It may not look like it, but the United States is under attack. A suspected Russian hacking campaign has penetrated top-secret parts of the government.
Russian opposition politician Alexei Navalny survived an assassination attempt in the summer after being poisoned with the nerve agent Novichok. He, as well as most Western nations, had blamed the Russian security forces. With the help of the Bellingcat investigative website, who had identified some of the team which had been trailing Navalny, he called them up. He pretended to be a senior security official investigating the poisoning operation, and he got a full confession.
No New Year's Eve fireworks in the year of COVID. Instead, this is the skyline of London, bathed in a familiar electric glow as it is on any other winter night. This is a city, like much of the country, hunkered down and mostly inside, shielded from the catastrophe that was 2020.